Franchising is rather simple as far as the valuations. Franchises are worth a multiple of their cash flow, their true EBITDA number, their earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. A lot of people know what the EBITDA or cash flow number is. Typically, a franchise, there's always a range, 3 to 5 times cash flow. If it's a great franchise, you're going to get, above a 4 multiple, could be closer to 5 or even higher if it's in demand.
You're listening to the Rich State of Mind Show, the podcast made to make you the total package in the entrepreneurial world and give you what we call a rich state of mind. If you are here looking to learn about real estate investing, marketing, elevating your business, and developing your mindset to get to the next level, then you are at the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join our community on richstateofmind.com. Now here's your host, Anthony Ritchie.
Hey, Lance, thank you so much for taking the time. Like I talked to you before we started recording, I'm excited about this episode because it's the first time we're talking about franchising, near and dear to what my wife and I goals are. And I feel like this would be another different topic that people could kind of chew on towards their entrepreneurial dream. So if you could please just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Anthony. I'm excited to be here. So, for me, born in Brooklyn, New York, born into a very, very entrepreneurial family. I think this is rather important for my story because a lot of people wonder how they become an entrepreneur. In my case, there's no doubt I was born into that kind of way of life. It wasn't a lab accident or, like Spider-Man got bit by a spider. In my case, I looked at my grandfather from Poland, who I could barely understand, who opened a chain. Well, he started with one, but ended up having a chain of supermarkets throughout Brooklyn and Queens for 35 years. My other grandfather was a real estate attorney, and then my dad was on Wall Street. So and dad helped his father with his supermarket empire as well. My dad's original passion and career was accounting. So I thought I was really going to be an accountant and work with dad that way. Dad went to Wall Street. I did go to Wall Street. And then I realized, look, in the world of investing, I wanted to just make some money but I wanted to be free. I really, really watched both of my grandfathers and emulated what they did. My dad was a partner in a Wall Street firm. He worked his way up. So I emulated certainly what he did as well, but he still had a boss. So I did that for a little bit. My dad kind of warned me. He goes, I'm watching what you're doing. He goes, you're not very employable. And I was like, I'm not very employable, huh? And he goes, that's a compliment. Go ahead, go on your own. But, long and the short of it for me is I dabbled in a lot of things. I followed some relatives. I left New York and I started with TGI Fridays, a franchise that an uncle had in Arizona. And we started with 4 stores that he acquired that were existing business for I think about $550,000 in the old days. They weren't doing that well. And then all of a sudden, 5 years later, we're doing 225 million a year through a lot of acquisitions, a lot of new store openings. So I'd like to say I really cut my teeth in the world of franchising and operations with him. So, I skipped over college and a lot of other things I did, but I realized greener pastures for me were definitely going to be on the West Coast. I live in Las Vegas. I've been here for quite some time. I've been a franchisee of brands like Wingstop and Krispy Kreme and in a couple of states, and started my own brand in Las Vegas with a partner called Pink Box Donuts, doing a bagel concept next. So I like to keep my hands dirty, so to speak, in operations. Love it. Love the customer service aspects. And I'm a builder, not a maintainer. I love building things, building businesses. But what you really want to know about today is in all of what I've done, I've made a ton of mistakes. Married the wrong woman the first time around. My mistake. Took a bad detour there. But in the world of investing, I realized very quickly through my life that you have real estate, you have Wall Street, stocks, etc., and they have business. And when I fell into franchising with my crazy uncle Steven, who's crazy successful, I realized this is a world that most people don't even understand to this day. People understand McDonald's, but then they think, oh, I have to be a millionaire to own a franchise. Well, McDonald's, yeah. But there are so many other franchises that are $150,000 or less. And I am a huge, okay, I'm large franchise broker. I have amassed over 700 brands today, part of different brokerages. And I can find a business for anyone. And the secret to success that we will unravel is the fact that you just have to be interested and then committed. And I am a free resource that helps people. Yes, free. I get paid by the brands. I get a commission from my brands after I find you a business that you invest in. So that's the long introduction.
Oh, and it's you have my brain churning as you talk because it's it's encouraging because like you said, everybody kind of thinks about McDonald's or any other big name franchise that will cost $1 million to get started, let alone if you're even trying to buy the building with that as well, because that's a whole separate thing. uh,
Absolutely.
and so this is cool because we talked a little bit about how somebody bought a franchise for about half of 150 grand, or a quarter
Yeah.
of that, a quarter,
Yeah.
1/3 of that. So it's possible. And then I like the fact that you mentioned that you're a builder, not a maintainer. And I think it's key to understand what type of entrepreneur you are, because I realize I'm kind of the same way. I like to build something to a certain point, but I don't like to maintain it for 10, 15 years. I kind
Right.
of want to get it to as nice, primed and ready, looks very attractive to the next person, and then sell it for the highest offer. And then I can move on to something else. And it's good to recognize that about yourself, because you don't want to hold on something for too long and then it just loses value, and it doesn't look great
Yeah.
anymore.
But to that point, and that is one of the issues that some of your listeners are possibly serial entrepreneurs and real estate investors, all walks of life. For those of for you know, and I work with people. I'm working with a guy now that has a net worth of about $200 million, and then I have someone else that doesn't have much, but they have good credit. And there are possibilities with those folks, in a lower cost franchise that might be 25, $30,000. So, but I tell everybody, you just have to start. I don't care how much money you have. Some people have too much analysis paralysis, and I show you great brands for you based on our conversations. I make an introduction to the brand, obviously, after I make sure there's territory available in your city where you are. And then the rest is, in franchising, there's actually a validation step. After you meet the brand, you have an opportunity to speak to existing franchisees. It's like a coordinated effort to ensure. It's kind of like meet the family. I don't know, when you got married, did you ask for your father-in-law's hand and for your wife? I mean, that's what some people do. I couldn't, unfortunately, as I got remarried. Her dad had passed, but her mom and I were good friends. But you validate the family, so to speak. You validate the existing franchisees before you jump in. Hey, Anthony, tell me how long it took you to make money.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
a little scared right now. Tell me, is there too much competition? Mindset. I know I've listened to quite a few of your podcasts and you do an awesome job. And mindset, I hear come up very often. And holy cow, mindset is everything. I have a mug behind me. Mindset is everything.
Awesome. Sounds like a book should be called that, or probably a book like that
Yep.
already exists. And so why would somebody for those people that are entrepreneurs out there, why would somebody want to do a franchise by starting their own business?
Such a wonderful question. And it's my favorite question. The, the majority of America does not have an original idea that they believe should be born. Mark Zuckerberg in college started Facebook. It was an idea he had or he got from friends and nurtured it, and Facebook is Facebook. Michael Dell Computers, same thing. And I could think of, obviously Steve Jobs with Apple, all tech companies. So easy to start when you're young, because if you fail, where are you? You're in the same place you were
Yeah.
before. You're not losing your kid's college fund or losing your house or anything like that. So, but at the end of the day, if you don't have an original idea that you feel needs to be born, what do you do?
Look, yeah.
Business is a staple. As I mentioned earlier, if it's not stocks and real estate, start a business. Well, franchising is your next best bet. I know plenty of very smart people, attorneys, especially accountants, professional people. They didn't have a business they wanted to start. So what did they do? They got a franchise. In some cases, their first franchise was a starter franchise, just like some people get a starter home. Most people don't buy their dream home out of high school or out of college,
This is true.
right? Some people do, I guess, if you're a child star. Drew Barrymore definitely did. But, in most cases, people can buy a starter franchise, meaning it could be a lower cost, it could be something that's a very safe bet. They can get financing for. In other cases, people buy a franchise and hold it forever. They like to maintain and they hold it forever. And they still now get comfortable enough and the confidence enough, and they start their own business as well. So, and they diversify that way. I know I have friends that own three different franchise brands.
So my idea that when it came to a franchise is that the fact that the system is already there. I don't have to, I'm not
Bingo.
reinventing the wheel. And maybe down the road, and the best way it was presented to me was I wanted to build my own realty company. And so it was presented to me that, hey, how about you franchise this realty company, learn how they do it, because obviously they've been around for decades. And
Yep.
then once you get comfortable, sell the company if you want, or move, so that you can move on and invest in your own franchise or company that you want to grow. And you have those tools, systems that you learn, and probably resources and contacts that you learned and got from the company that you franchised.
100%. Some people underestimate or don't even realize all of the call it inclusive. They're not necessarily free because you're paying a royalty to the franchisor, the parent company that you're a franchisee with. But the sort of inclusive benefits of owning a franchise is not only do you have their training and their experience and you're all in the same game where they need to make you successful. Nobody wants a failed franchisee. There's a franchise disclosure document that's a legal document that every franchise brand creates that's updated every year. If a franchise should close or fail, it has to be documented and updated in that franchise disclosure document. It's not something people like to do. And that does happen. We can talk more about that. In most cases, it's a brand that somebody should not have joined, like a bad marriage, like I've done. I've had bad partners, not just wives or wife. But the other additional, call it inclusive resources you get is the brother and sisterhood, so to speak, that you get and the best practices. When I was a Wingstop franchisee, I was also president of the Franchise Advisory Council. So I'd get called almost by every new franchisee. Hey, I just wanted to talk to you. I talked to corporate about this, but I'm curious, how do we really do this? Or how do you help me with that? And each franchisee becomes a resource and as part of the best practices system. We're all sharing a common system to build equity. Some people forget that. You ever hear, I know you've heard this from people before, don't get a franchise. It's like buying a job. Oh, really? A job that you can sell for $1.5 million or $10 million, or a friend of mine that sold for $50 million? Really? No, it's more like a real estate business or a property rental business, even though you're leasing a space, because it's always that arbitrage or that profit that you're able to make above your expenses that, is a multiple. You get to sell a franchise for a multiple of your cash flow.
So equity, yeah, definitely understand. And so the concept of real estate is, you add value and then it is worth more, minus the market, obviously helping things appreciate. When it comes to a franchise, and let's just say you don't own the building that it's in, um, or like the ones that are at home, like we mentioned earlier, how do
Mhm.
you add value to a franchise that already
Yeah.
has a system in place?
Well, first off, franchising is rather simple as far as the valuations. Franchises are worth a multiple of their cash flow, their true EBITDA number, their earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. A lot of people know what the EBITDA or cash flow number is. Typically, a franchise there's always a range, 3 to 5 times cash flow. If it's a great franchise, you're going to get, above a 4 multiple, could be closer to 5 or even higher if it's in demand. We talked about Dunkin' Donuts. I know folks that have Dunkin' Donuts franchisees, and they sell for sometimes higher multiples. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and we
Yeah.
have a whole supply and demand system that's sort of a natural thing in this country. And but on average, even if you sold for 4 times cash flow, so you could buy a franchise for 150,000. You have a cash flow of maybe 500,000 after you set it up. I shouldn't say 500,000, but a cash flow after you throw the multiples. Even if the cash flow is 100 and change, let's say it's worth 500,000, but you bought the franchise for far less than that. That's pretty good after establishing that income throughout over the years. And depends how long you want to hold it. A typical franchise agreement is 10 years, and it's automatically renewable as long as you're not in default, which is why you see McDonald's franchisees on what, 4th, 5th generation these days.
Yeah. And good to know about, a usual franchisee holds on to a franchise for about 10 years. And so early.
Well, I don't know what the stats are these days. Those are the agreements. And
Okay.
some people, you could still sell at year 6. Like you said, you're a builder. So you might get a franchise, get into it for 100 grand and sell it for 500 grand after 5 years, 6 years.
And I'd be
You're
fine with
allowed, you're
that.
allowed to do that.
Okay, awesome. Good to know. And so earlier you talked about, the cost of franchises as far as, it could be 50 grand, it could be 150 or a million. How does somebody go about financing for a franchise? I'm assuming, can I go to Chase Bank today and try to do that?
You could. If you walked into any of the major banks, actually, for that matter, if you even go into community banks, everybody has an SBA lender, the Small Business Administration through the federal government. Their job, of course, is to stimulate the growth, hence the name Small Business Administration. They want to encourage small business growth, and they love franchises. So because of that, there are SBA lenders all over the country in every single bank in the country. However, there are certainly, like I have someone looking very closely at an amazing franchise, an oil change franchise that's doing incredibly well. And even though one of my prospective franchisees said to me, well, wait a second. If Tesla takes over the world, there's no oil changes needed. I mean, it's an electric car. And I said, well, that's going to take a really, really long time.
Yeah.
Well, what is it? 3% of America has an electric car today, maybe.
Definitely in your
So,
lifetime is still needed.
yeah. So bottom line is there's SBA lenders everywhere. Typically with an SBA loan, you're going to put down as little as 15%, as much as 25%. And it can't be your last dollar that you're investing for that down payment. Of course, it's kind of like when you get a mortgage. It's not about just the down payment. What's the next thing they ask you?
6 months usually of
Income.
mortgage. Yeah, or
They want
income
to
as
see
well.
they want to see your income. So it's similar with a business. If you're quitting your day job, they want to know you have some income, some money socked away, because no business magically, you're fixing and flipping homes or doing buy and holds. It takes money and it takes time. You don't just get rich from this stuff overnight. So similar in franchising, although you mentioned real estate, I have a real estate franchise, 3% Realty. In their documentation, the average franchisee, it says the average franchisee recoups their initial investment in 120 days. So pretty quick ramp up period based on those figures. But so you got SBA loans, you have 401k rollovers. They're called ROBS, Rollover Business Startup Loan, ROBS. Those have been on the books forever. When 401ks were invented in the 70s and put on the books, the IRS allowed for, was included in the code as these ROBs, where you can borrow money for the purposes of either of an investment for yourself, real estate, franchising, whatever. And hasn't really been used a lot until, I want to say, about 15 years ago. I started hearing about it more and more and more. And today there's a lot of people that do it, because basically you set up a C corporation, you have a intermediary that does this with the IRS so you don't get in trouble, and you pull money out of your 401k, it's put into the C corp, and you use that money to invest in your business. So there's no penalties. There is a cost to set this up, but there's no penalties when you pull the money out. And it's an amazing way to do it. I had a guy recently that had a healthy stock portfolio, and he looked at all of the options, and he goes, "You know what, Lance? I just talked to my broker. It turns out I could borrow money against my trading account for a pretty low interest rate, which is fantastic." I
Yeah.
mean, you can, like anything, like home equity, you have equity in your stock portfolio. It's all equity. You're not going to let you borrow all of it.
No.
So, but yeah, those are some examples. So, look, you just have to have a 680 credit score. You don't get brownie points if it's an 800. They just want you to have at least a 680 credit score. And if you're getting a bigger loan, like if you want something like a Dunkin' Donuts, and you're getting a loan, they definitely want you to be a homeowner. They're looking at collateral. They're going to make you sign a personal guarantee, but that such is life, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so, as you've been talking, it's got me thinking about, somebody who is looking into franchising, a couple of things. They definitely want to do their homework. I think you're the type of person, you're the right person to sit down with and get a plan in place, because this is not something you just step into. And I know we're kind of glossing over certain things that when you sit down on a piece of paper and actually have to do it, there's a lot of application and a lot of time. But we're just
Yep.
obviously talking about things on the surface.
And I don't even ask for that. I don't ask for any of that. All I do is I just take it all over the phone, over a
Mhm.
Zoom call, whatever. Occasionally people don't tell me everything up front. I have to ask, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So at the end of the conversation, so Susan, tell me what your credit score is. Oh, well, I was going to get to that. So here's the thing.
Yeah. Here's what
It's
happened.
really probably about 575. And okay, so do you know who to go to get your credit fixed, or should I recommend somebody? And I help people with everything. Sometimes it takes, Anthony, sometimes it takes 2 years for somebody to actually invest in a franchise, for me to successfully have a deal closed. That's okay. So I'll help people with everything, and connect them with the lenders. I have so many amazing lenders. I was telling you before we started, I had a young lady that put nothing down, zero down, signature loan. She didn't own a home, and she got a $40,000 loan to do a kid related franchise where she got to stay at home. And it's one of those STEAM, if you don't know, the science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. Talk about
Nice.
STEAM, talk about STEM, all these fancy acronyms with kids and their developmental needs in school. And a great franchise. And she's going to be fantastically successful and probably double her income in a short enough period of time, in something that she really loves, and not having to have a boss anymore with nothing down.
And that's the beauty in it. Well, having that freedom, having that, not having somebody dictate your time as much as, the 9 to 5. And that is, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a millionaire to start it. I think a lot of times, this is why I like nowadays, because 15, 20 years ago, this information was a lot harder to come by. I
Absolutely.
just had to go to the library to figure out a lot of things with my father. But now, a lot of times, YouTube, podcasting is still in its infancy stage, and everybody has almost a smartphone now. So podcasts are very accessible, and so this information is out there a lot more, a lot easier, and it's a lot
Yeah.
more digestible than people have found out to be.
And it's funny you say all that of what you just said, because I just launched my podcast that's been quite successful. I have so many brands that I represent, so I keep bringing founders or presidents and CEOs and franchise development folks. I love having two people. I love two guests at a time, and it's great. And I'm now going to be launching my YouTube channel as well to help people with all the common tips that they want. And look, at the end of the day, somebody can go to my website, I have a free assessment that helps me understand, and what franchise and what categories are best for you based on your mindset, skill set, life experiences, etc. And then I have a free phone call with you. Like I said, free the whole time. I don't ever ask you to swipe a credit card.
That's pretty awesome. And again, it's one of those things that encourages people to say, all right, let me talk to this guy. If it's free, I can see what I need to do, where I'm at. Maybe I'm ready right now. I just need to have a little bit of a learning curve, and I can move forward faster than I thought. Because some people, like for me, it took me 5 years before I actually started investing in real estate. I guess analysis paralysis, a lot of, and I also married the wrong person. That later on I had to figure out that things had to change.
You're
So
a faster learner than me, I'm sure, because I was married too long the first time.
uh, Well, yeah, such is life, I guess, like you said earlier. But things, it all worked out, and I'm glad it worked out the way it did because I was better prepared. And so I was big on, and this is, I think anything investing or doing certain milestones in life. If your family is not ready, then you're not ready. Because at
Yeah,
the time, my family wasn't ready because it was falling apart. So
yeah.
it wasn't the time. And so if you are, if married and have kids, if you're single, hey, then it's just on you. But in order to do things like this that will consume your time and resources, then I think your family, we all have to be on the same page here. Because as
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it, what you're talking about, I'm writing down, okay, what franchise, could I do? Or when I talk to you, Lance, I'm thinking about, all right, well, what can I do with my wife? Because my wife's going to have to sign off on this because that means I'm going to be at my desk probably more away
Yeah.
from being upstairs in the bedroom. So I'm trying to also
Well,
process her.
let's work that example, the live example with you,
Okay.
because I'm smiling big as you're talking about all this because I actually train franchise consultants and brokers for a large brokerage. And one of the things as part of the training I teach people is after your first phone call with a candidate, like what I would put you through, after a first phone call, even though they're really excited and you've given them a lot of good information and you found out their investment level and you know where they live and what their background is and maybe they did your free assessment, etc., they get off the phone super excited. What does somebody do when they're really looking at entrepreneurship for the first time and they get off a phone with someone like myself? They tell everybody they know, right? They call their brother, their sister, their mother, their wife, whoever, and they say, honey, guess what? And what do most relatives say to that individual? What are you, nuts? You don't know anything about business. You have no idea about this. You can't even keep a job. Whatever. I mean, it ends up being very negative. And at the end of the day, I expect that. I expect it. Unfortunately, I expect that. But I can help people get through that, because look, anytime anybody ever want to lose 10 pounds, is it easy? No,
Oh,
it's a process. Getting into business for yourself is not easy, but the franchising system and working with someone like myself makes it a heck of a lot easier. So people should obviously consider that. And to your comment, everybody comes to me with ideas, and it's great to have ideas. It's a starting point. But my goal is to open your mind up to other possibilities. It's kind of like how many times do you go to a restaurant? I don't know your eating habits or your wife, but I'm going to guess one of you is pretty open minded and one of you is not.
yeah, that is.
Well, and that's like my parents. My dad was not open minded with food. There were certain things he would never eat. It's like, Dad, how come you don't eat mayo? Well, I don't know, I must have had a bad experience when I was a kid. Well, same thing with business. I say to people, well, I think you could be perfect for this type of franchise. Oh, no, no, no. My brother-in-law told me that's the worst industry. Oh, really? Well, he's wrong. I'm sorry. He's wrong. I could back it up with facts and statistics. So, but I give people, I basically spoon feed that tasting menu so you can try it and go, you know what? That's not bad. And it's pretty amazing because so many people do end up buying or investing in a franchise you never would have expected.
Yeah, and it sounds like franchising is one size fits all as far as there are different flavors to pick, so that I'm not stuck with maybe just doing the restaurant industry, you
Nope.
know. And so that kind of segues into my next question, which is what are the most popular franchise categories today?
Boy, you ask good questions, and you didn't even prepare me for that. So the most popular category is food and beverages, restaurants,
Okay.
and for sure. Number two, the second most popular category is what we call personal care services, which a lot of listeners and yourself certainly know. I mentioned some earlier, whether it's Great Clips, hair salons, or supercuts, or
Okay.
European Wax Center, Massage Envy, to name a few. But there's I call them 23 major categories, and there's tons of subcategories within that. Sports and fitness and senior care or home care services. Home care is exploding. I have an attorney friend of mine that is looking to get into a home care franchise, and we're talking companion care, $150,000 or less, and you're in business. And some of these brands, most of them are doing $1 million a year in their territories. Sales, not net income.
And so with some
But
people, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Sorry.
So with some people's fears were because of the pandemic, they noticed a lot of businesses were failing. And we talked about one business in particular was doing great during the pandemic. Throughout your
Yep.
experience, I don't like to call things pandemic proof or recession proof, but what
Yeah.
did you see? What categories did you see still were able to profit during something like that pandemic?
I'm not going to keep complimenting you on how great your questions are, but another great question. The last time I'm going to say it. No,
Okay.
but another great question. Seriously, the interesting thing is, before I answer that, let's talk about why franchising is so good when you enter an awful stage, so to speak, like a pandemic.
Okay.
All of these poor independent business owners were panicked. If you own a dry cleaners that's your own business, or a restaurant that's your own business, and the pandemic hits, there's no one helping you negotiate anything. You're all on your own unless you hire somebody and pay a lot of money. What franchisors did is they went to their attorney or their accountant or their bank or whoever and said, all right, I heard there's this PPP money or EIDL money. I need your help because I want you to help our franchisees with the paperwork. They're not going to want to deal with it. Let me just pay you to deal with all this. And all of a sudden, you have all these franchisees getting all kinds of PPP money when the independent businesses are still twiddling their thumbs. It was an awful situation, and plenty of independent businesses have either suffered tremendously or have gone out of business. Not so much on the franchise side. And so that support that they had was amazing. And the negotiations with the landlords of, and when you own a franchise, the landlords look at you differently. The landlords are looking for franchises in their center.
Yes.
They are looking for name brands that they could put in that shopping center. So to really answer your question, there are some fairly obvious brands in general. If you were in the restaurant business and you had a small restaurant like a Wingstop, almost didn't matter that there was a pandemic. In fact, many of my franchise friends and brands like Wingstop and certain sandwich shops, they destroyed their numbers from the previous year. They were up 25% sometimes over the previous year. They were actually doing better in the pandemic. And it was more efficient because people weren't coming in. They were, getting Uber Eats and DoorDash or their own delivery service. Or if you had a drive-through, you were doing fantastic. So what got killed, as some people do know, as what really got killed during the pandemic is any restaurant that was, let's say, 2,500 square feet or larger. You're paying for this bigger building, and especially the big boxes that are 5,000 square feet. You're paying for all this rent. You had no reprieve, and you had hardly anybody in the building, or you were only able to have 25% capacity or whatever. So the big restaurants really suffered. The salon business or any of those, is it essential to get your nails done? I don't know. Some people think so. Ask my daughter and my wife, and they're going to say absolutely. So, but quite a few, the salon business definitely was hurt. My friends that have franchise hair salons were absolutely hurt. They saw the first slowdown they've ever seen because people couldn't come in and there's no way to do a to-go haircut. If there was, it would be on Amazon, right?
Yes, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So, but some of the businesses that did amazing when things started, adjusting. Remember the first month or so that the pandemic hit, everybody was like this, like frozen. Nobody knew what to do. Like, is this really happening? What do you mean we have to wear masks? What? Who's Fauci? Like all these things were happening. Fauci, the most famous, what's a Fauci? So the reality is when everybody was stuck at home initially, most people started redoing their homes,
Yes, you're right.
investing in their property. So my home services franchises exploded, whether people were redoing floors or getting new blinds or needed some electrical work done that they were putting off or needed their pool deck redone or whatever it was. Holy cow, the home services franchises exploded. The cleaning franchises, once we got over that hump, all of a sudden people had a different appreciation for these made, services that we have. Um, right across the street from my house, my neighbor has Maid Brigade come over there, which is a franchise I just had on my podcast. Amazing brand that's been around a long time. Commercial cleaning franchises, but senior care services. When the whole awful situation, especially in New York, seemed to be magnified with the nursing home scenario, and so many people passed away because COVID due to the nursing home fiasco in places like New York. Some people really readjusted their thinking and said, well, wait a second. I don't want my mom or dad to be in a nursing home, especially now. I want them at home. So our senior care brands that do all this, it's not even medical, it's non-medical companion care. I probably have 28 franchises like that. They're all what we would call hockey stick growth for the next
Yeah.
35 years, And that was even before the pandemic, because the average person today, in an average day, about 10,000 people turn 65. So the population is aging and they want to be in their homes as they get older. Unfortunately, my dad passed at the start of COVID. And first thing my mom did was hire a franchise companion care service to come in and help because she's in her 70s. I flew in to help also so I can entertain dad and hang out with him as well. But you need that companion care. So, but those are just some examples. Fitness had a little bit of an issue, but I'll tell you a good story. I have a fitness company called Exponential Fitness. They own quite a few brands, and Cycle Bar and Yoga Six, and they have probably 8 brands. And what they had that was magical, as soon as the pandemic hit, they had all this online content, training online that they never really had released. So what did they do? They gave all of their members across all of their brands, Row House, great rowing franchise. They gave all of their members all of that content. Don't cancel your membership. We're going to give you online content. And so maybe they weren't a member, maybe they were a member of Cycle Bar, but now they're taking a yoga class. And some of it was recorded, but some of it is also live Zoom classes with a yoga instructor. And you can take a yoga class online from your house, included with your membership. And people really liked that. It was
I love that.
genius.
I love that.
So that was just a very smart entrepreneur. Anthony Geisler, who's the CEO of Exponential, came up with that idea with his team. I'm sure everybody had input, great organization, and added value. It's all about value, right? So the franchisees were able to, kind of hang in there as much as possible. I mean, look, not everybody's going to survive that pandemic from a business standpoint. These are unprecedented times. And look, we all have to adapt or, adapt and hopefully thrive, but some things don't succeed.
I'm so glad that you brought that up about that example of that person making a pivot in their business, understanding that something that is out of their control and how to overcome it, and looking at that obstacle as an opportunity to still service their customers and still make money. I'm really big on that.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we went through our troubles with real estate when it came to the pandemic, and we had to make a pivot because the deal was, hey, we're not paying any of these mortgages out of our own pocket. So how are we going to do this? And so we found a way to come out on top. And I think I'm not saying that's going to be 100% all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just not in the cards, but I think it still gives you a good fighting chance to at least break even and
Yep.
to live to fight another day.
Yeah. We all expect that there's going to be some difficult times when we choose certain paths. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you can expect that there's going to be difficult times. Unfortunately, nobody expected the pandemic. And it was definitely something that we all got a chance to really think about and understand what we could do differently in the future, if anything.
No, you're completely right. I love this conversation because even though we are talking about franchising, we're also talking about having that business mindset and
Oh
what's
yeah.
required in order to be successful. And I want every time we talk about something like this, whether it's real estate investing, stocks, uh, franchising, what's the key thing that's always being brought up is consistency and having that right mindset. And obviously, like you said, when it comes to at least having a 680 credit score, you have some type of financial literacy.
Right.
Uh, so it's no different, and that's maybe if some people might see it as a roadblock, or others see it as, okay, this is clearly the staple formula to at least get my foot in the door to some type of success. And there's no skipping steps. There's no Dogecoin cheat code here, where I'm able to just
Exactly.
skip steps and then become a millionaire within a year. And I love that.
So to add to that, boy, you brought up some great points. When it comes to franchising, those you have a mentor in your, typically they're called franchise business consultants that each brand is going to have, and they're really your coach, and they're going to make sure you're hitting your metrics and make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to, because they know if a restaurant, which is such a large investment normally speaking, the average fast casual restaurant concept like a Wingstop or something like a Wingstop, you're talking $450,000 investment, 500, depending on what area of the country you're in. And they know if you don't hit a certain sales threshold within X period of time, depending on what your net worth is, you're going to be in trouble. So, again, that's the beauty of when, God forbid, something like a pandemic happens, the franchisor has your back. They know that they have to be able to throw you a life preserver. Whether a franchisor could say, well, stop paying me royalties. I don't want the royalties. Don't pay me any royalties, or give me a discount on the royalties, or pay me back later, or whatever it might be. So
Gotcha.
it's definitely a team effort. And that's the
Also,
beauty of it. You've heard the expression, to be in business, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. That's franchise.
and so it sounds like it's definitely possible for somebody to become a millionaire in time, depending on how much they put into their franchise.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite questions, because, think of the S&P 500. I'm an old Wall Street brat. That's how I grew up. My dad watched every show growing up before the internet existed on Wall Street. And I grew up hearing that since I'm a little kid. And what I learned at a young age was, so the S&P 500 has returned, I think it's 10.6% since 1957. Average every year, 10.6%. So, do you know that you're 25 years old and you put $300 a month in the S&P 500, in an index fund that matches the S&P 500, you're going to get that 10.6% on average. It might go up, might go down. 27 years later, when you're 57, you have your first $1,000,000 from doing nothing. If you could stomach that $300 a month. So there's a lot of easy ways to make money. But a lot of people don't want to make the sacrifice of that $300 a month. I did it for the longest time. Unfortunately, when I got married the first time, we built the amazing house. We spent too much money. Well, she did. I allowed it. I hate to say that. She wasn't employed. She took care of the kids. She had the hard job, I say. But I'm being, really real here with everybody. Anybody can be a millionaire. Anybody. If you want to keep a job because you're too scared of being your own boss, you don't want to do real estate, you don't want to do anything else, stock market, 10.6%. Anybody can do it. Even if it was 8%, I'd have to calculate that real quick. But it's going to take you a few years longer to get your $1 million. But it's unbelievable. So in the answer to your question of franchising, hell yeah. I told you before we started briefly, but I didn't tell you the whole story. I have a great brand. If you have any kind of sales ability, you work from home, you go out and do some meetings here and there, but you're a consultant. And as long as you have sales ability, they can teach you. You just have to be a nice person, sales ability. $68,000 investment. And there's somebody that sold for over 1.7 million, I think was the number. Other people have sold for way over $1 million as well. But I think the record for that particular brand, 1.7 million on a $68,000 investment. You didn't put away $300 a month for 27 years.
How long did it take them to do that?
You invested $68,000, some of which you can get a loan for. You don't even have to come out of pocket for all that. I feel like, I think that was 7 years. I think it was at least 7 years.
And that's not long at all.
No, but I could be wrong. People. I mean, it could be longer, but
even if it was 10 years. Even if it was 10.
There's a lot of examples. I know guys that build up, my friend that has a bunch of franchise hair salons. He got an SBA loan for $200,000, puts his 25% down. On average, his hair salons net about $75,000. He has a whole bunch of them. So he's netting $1.5 million a year. His company's worth, call it based on a normal multiple, his company's worth $6 million. And what did he do? He did work hard in the beginning. He worked hard in the beginning, first year and a half. Anything we do, think about you, Anthony, when you started with real estate investing, in the beginning, you don't know what you're doing. You have like 2 left feet. You don't have that. We call it muscle memory in the gym and in business. It's that muscle memory. Like people ask me they call me all the time, Lance, how do you open a business? What do you have to do? I give them my checklist. You need a business license. You have to go to sales tax. You have to get insurance. Gosh, how do you know this? Because I've done it 45 times. Once you've done it, you start to know it. So I'll walk people through all of that. And the most important thing is, if you're scared, it's okay. Just don't freeze. Start with that starter franchise just to get going. And maybe it's a $50,000 franchise, and after a few years, it's worth $200,000, not $2 million. It's worth $200,000. Then you go to the next one, or you maintain that like a buy and hold situation in real estate, and buy another franchise. Buddy of mine is worth probably $10 million. He could be worth more, but he doesn't want to work that hard. He's got all the money he needs. That's the thing. So many people out there think they have to be worth $1 billion. I wouldn't even know what to do with that. I got all the fancy cars out of my system at this point. Am I going to buy more houses? I guess I'll build an orphanage in a foreign country, possibly. I don't know.
Boat, bigger yacht. I guess, I talked to my wife
rent a boat. I got a buddy that's a yacht captain in Boca Raton, Florida. I go to Miami. We'll get the big boat he's a captain of. I go rent it. Boat's not a good investment. You know that.
No, I love the fact that you mentioned that, man, because I talked to my wife about that, how like there's people out there where they're just fine with 10 million, and there's others where it's like a bottomless pit. Like the more money you have, the more ways you find to spend it. And usually I see that in relationships. You have the saver and you have the spender, and trying to find that happy medium. I try to go by the percentage rule. So as our income increases, we don't go over 50% towards expenses. Yep. So your lifestyle does increase, but marginally. You're not going crazy with it. No matter how much you make. So if you make 10 million a year, you're spending 5 million on expenses,
The bottom line is you're so right. The bottom line is everybody just needs to find out what makes them happy. It's not so much your passion. Your passion doesn't necessarily have to be your business. There are a lot of people that come to me that are passionate about something and think they can turn it into a business. We have all probably, I think everybody has seen an episode or two of Shark Tank.
Yes.
And I interviewed Kevin Harrington on my podcast. He's a friend of mine because he's involved in a lot of franchises. I know his attorney, um, phenomenal individual. He was my first interview when I started the podcast. But Kevin and I were talking about different things with passion and this and that. But on Shark Tank, how many times have you seen Mr. Wonderful look at somebody straight in the eye, like I'm looking at you now, and say, "That's a hobby. That's not a business." So at the end of the day, your passion might be a phenomenal hobby and it could be a business. But don't mistake that you can pursue your passion separately from just making money.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. I think people really did need to hear that. And to break that down between the difference between, all right, I love making mugs, but maybe that my mug making business is not meant to be worth $10 million. Maybe
Yep.
it's just meant to just sell it to people I may know, or maybe off of Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hey, by the way, when we're done, you have to check to see if getmug.com is available.
okay,
Yeah, that'd be a great website for the mugs you're going to make.
get mugged out. See, and so that I like the fact that you brought that up because I think instantly, what's definitely being promoted nowadays is what am I passionate about, and what I'm passionate about. If I love it enough and I'm passionate enough about it, it will work out. Uh, and that may not be the case based off of a lot of variables. It
Yeah.
may not be the case, but it has its place,
Mhm.
but doesn't have to go away.
Yeah. And let me also elaborate because what it also comes down to is when I'm talking to people and I find out what their skill sets are, that they're really good with people, or they have excellent communication skills, or they're a great leader, those ingredients, it's like a pot on the stove, so to speak. And I'm putting these ingredients in, and what comes out could be a home care franchise. It could be a sports or fitness franchise. It could be a lot of different things. And they look at me and they go, "Really?" And I go, "Absolutely." And when they start, there's a whole process and system. As I mentioned earlier, talking about validation, when they actually talk to the brand and they talk to existing franchisees, they start to see themselves within the culture. They see another guy like Anthony involved and they go, "Man, there's a lot of people just like me. I feel at home here, like joining a fraternity or a sorority." You feel like you fit, you feel like family, and you go, "This is the brand for me." Even though it's not what I expected, holy cow, I can make the money. It fits in my, I've created a business plan, around, and it's about your what. What is it you want to do? What is the investment level? And what is your time investment? Are you going to be a full-time owner operator? Or are you active duty military like some?
Exactly.
Or are you going to be a passive investor? The middle, we call the semi absentee owner, where you hire a manager, and there's plenty of brands that allow that. Some brands don't, most brands do. And there's so many amazing options out there for every investment level, for every skill set. So don't be scared.
And so, like I usually ask, what's your rich state of mind, as in what's your why? But I want to ask you, what is your what? What is your big what?
You know, what I have been doing all of my life is really helping people. I've been told I'm too generous. I've been told with my time, with my, well, I mean, really with my time at this point. But I have all kinds of programs in my head that I've thought of over the years to help young kids learn about entrepreneurship, because I really feel that in this world today, we're not being trained right. I'm lucky that I was brought up in the family that I was brought up in. I look at some friends and relatives, some of the things they tell me about, I'm like, man, it's amazing you made it out of that.
No,
You know,
yeah.
there shouldn't be a fight to be successful, and I'm using air quotes because success is being contributing positively to your community, helping your children, um, training them right, so to speak, so they can, hopefully be better than you were in life.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I just love helping people. And as a franchisee, I was always a top 1% franchisee. And I think it was the way I was brought up. It was just natural. It was instinctive. I was going to follow the system, which is why franchising was so good. But I've created my own successful brands as well and sold them. But I want to continue to share that with people. And that's what I do every day. I talk to entrepreneurs that are never going to buy a franchise, but want my help, either developing a franchise system. It's one thing we didn't even talk about. If somebody out there owns an independent business, and they're not even, most independent business owners aren't even sure what the next step is. They're just fighting to stay afloat every day. They might have a successful business, but their time is invested in running this thing. Well, franchising could be right to share that model with the world, and you'd be shocked the results.
And so that's why we're going to have to do a part 2 to this, because I know that there's more to unpack with this. I just wanted to give everybody just a little taste what they could really do, your services that you provide, and where can people find you?
Easiest thing, I have a new website launching. I have so much going on. The easiest thing, ionfranchising.com, ION franchising.com. I'm on Instagram. I have everything goes on my Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm all over the place.
Awesome. I really appreciate your time, Lance. This has been great, man. Personally and professionally for the podcast, you've been a great add of value of content and information for the audience and myself. And I really do appreciate your time. This has been great.
Anthony, thank you so much. You're awesome.
Thank you for sticking with us from the start of the episode. Please share our show with friends and family, visit our YouTube channel, and view more of our content on richstateofmind.com. See you next week on the Rich State of Mind Show.